July 4th is America's Independence Day, but Congress did not vote for independence on July 4th. It voted 2 days earlier. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress approved Richard Henry Lee's resolution that the United Colonies were free and independent states. So why do Americans celebrate July 4th? Because 2 days later, Congress adopted the document that explained that decision to the world, the Declaration of Independence. But getting there had taken more than a year of war, argument, and a hard choice that divided homes, towns, and colonies. In April 1775, British regulars marched toward Concord, Massachusetts. They intended to seize colonial military stores. Instead, fighting broke out at Lexington and Concord. The war had begun. After Lexington and Concord, the Second Continental Congress met in Philadelphia. It first assembled in May 1775, not to declare independence, but to manage a crisis. The delegates organized an army. They named George Washington its commander, and still many hoped that the break with Britain could be repaired. Not every colonist wanted independence. Some believed reconciliation was still possible. Others feared that rebellion would bring war, disorder, and ruin. But every month made reconciliation harder to believe. British troops and American militia were already fighting. Boston had been under siege. And then, in January 1776, Thomas Paine published a pamphlet that said plainly what many Americans had begun to think. It was called Common Sense. Paine did not ask Americans to bargain for better treatment inside the British Empire. He asked a sharper question. Why should a distant island rule a continent? He attacked hereditary monarchy. He argued that America could govern itself. And he made independence sound not like a wild dream, but like a necessary decision. By the summer of 1776, the question facing Congress was no longer easy to avoid. Would the colonies remain tied to Britain, or would they declare themselves free and independent? On June 7th, Richard Henry Lee of Virginia stood before Congress and introduced a resolution that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. That was the vote that mattered most. Congress delayed the final decision for several weeks. Some colonial delegations needed new instructions from home, but Congress did not waste the time. On June 11th, it appointed 5 men to prepare a declaration explaining independence if the vote passed. Thomas Jefferson of Virginia, John Adams of Massachusetts, Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania, Roger Sherman of Connecticut, and Robert R. Livingston of New York. They became known as the Committee of Five. Thomas Jefferson was 33 years old and had already earned a reputation as a clear and forceful writer. John Adams later recalled that Jefferson was selected to prepare the first draft. Adams believed Jefferson could state the American case with unusual precision. The committee deliberated, and Jefferson drafted the document. After more discussion between the Committee of Five and further revisions, it was proposed to Congress. Congress debated over the document line by line, cutting out and revising pieces. In the end, the Declaration of Independence was born. But first, Congress had to make its decision. On July 2nd, 1776, it approved Lee's resolution for independence. John Adams believed that date would be remembered forever. He wrote to his wife Abigail that July 2nd ought to be celebrated with pomp and parade, with bonfires and illuminations from one end of the continent to the other. He was 2 days off. On July 4th, Congress adopted the final text of the Declaration. That is why America celebrates the 4th of July. Not because it was the first day Americans resisted Britain. Not because it was the day the war had begun. Not because it was the day Congress first voted to become independent. It was the day Congress approved the words that told the world why the Americans believed they had the right to be free. The Declaration did not begin with a battle cry. It began with an explanation. When in the course of human events, it said, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. The delegates were about to make a dangerous claim. They were not simply protesting taxes. They were dissolving their political connection with the most powerful empire on earth. And in part 2, they would lay out their charge against the king.